Months before Russia ever invaded Ukraine, I was reporting to you all right here on this channel that Russia was gathering this massive army on the border of Ukraine. Now, the US, for weeks on end, was pretending like this was not a big deal at all. They were saying, oh, this is most likely some type of training exercise. And Ukraine, they weren't taking it seriously at all either. In fact, they were partying. They said that Russia was bluffing, nothing to see here. But then I noticed something. As they were gathering this army, what originally let me know that this was more than training, that this was serious, was when Russia started to construct these military field hospitals right on the border. And they started having truckloads come in with blood, right? At that point, I knew, okay, this is not a game. This is not training. They're about to go in. And they're already preparing for injuries. They're preparing for people to lose blood, all this stuff. They're going in for sure. Now, eventually, the U.S. finally came around and started taking it seriously. But literally, Ukraine, it wasn't until maybe a day or two, I would say maybe just a few days before Russia invaded, that Ukraine actually took it seriously. They were acting like nothing to see here for the longest. Now, in the opening days of this conflict, I was really worried and scared about Putin. Now, to be clear, I'm not here to tell you that Putin is a good guy, because he's not. We know that he knocks off a lot of his political rivals and stuff, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. Initially, when this conflict started, I was scared that we were going to see something like Blitzkrieg 2.0, a lightning war where Russia just rolls right through Ukraine and just starts rolling through Europe. I was scared that we may see something like that at first, okay? Now, part of the reason why I was scared about that was because a lot of the propaganda that was out there. I mean, in America, we've been raised to kind of look at Russia as our enemies since birth. And don't get me wrong, it's not like I hate Russia or I hate Russians. That couldn't be further from the truth. But we kind of look at them as our adversaries. Hell, I grew up watching Rocky. What is his name? Ivan Drago or something? You know what I mean? Like, we grow up looking at Russia like, hey, they're our adversaries, right? They're our competition. So initially, I was really scared about what could happen, and I'm still to this day scared about what this conflict can turn into. But I'm scared for different reasons. Because it's clear to me that in the opening days of the conflict, they were accusing Russia of this, they were accusing Russia of that. They said Putin wanted to do this and that. Putin wanted to take over all of these countries. And it's become evidently clear that that's not the truth. In fact, I don't even think that Putin wants all of Ukraine. I think he wants to take a few regions, and we could sit here and talk about how that's not okay or whatever. But the reality is it's happening. And the reality is that it's not happening for no reason. Putin didn't wake up and decided, hey, I'm going to invade Ukraine for no reason. I want more land. I want more territory. No, there were warnings, clear warnings set out for years that led up to the invasion. And the reality is, as much as I hate to say it, I believe that the U.S. and NATO are more responsible for this conflict than Russia. Because Russia has set out, they've drawn some lines in the sands, and they've told and they've warned America and NATO about certain things, and we keep ignoring those warnings and going full steam ahead. And we're basically we keep expecting Russia to back down, to constantly back down. Russia draws this one line in the sand, we step over it, and we expect Russia to draw another line in the sand 10 yards further back, right? Well, eventually, if you keep pushing someone into a corner, they're going to push back. And I think that's what's happening right now in Ukraine. Russia is starting to push back. And they have threatened that they were going to push back a long time ago. But finally, Ukraine was kind of like the last straw, the straw that broke the camel's back. But now, when I look at this conflict, I look at it from a totally different perspective, in a whole new light, because I don't feel like Putin is the conqueror that they tried to make him out to be. I don't think he's here trying to conquer the world or take over Europe. I don't think he wants to really do any of that. And I think that's been made clear by his actions. Because I try to tell people this all the time, they don't understand. If Putin and Russia wanted to win a decisive victory over Ukraine and wipe out Ukraine, they could have by now. They could have. They're honestly looking at the war, it doesn't even make sense that the Russian army is using the restraint that they are, but it makes sense when you realize that maybe they want to limit the amount of civilians who are killed. Maybe they don't want to wipe out all of the infrastructure. Maybe they don't want to level entire city blocks. You know what I mean? So, all I'm saying is, if they wanted this war to be over quickly, if they wanted to go a different route, if Putin was the man they accuse him of being, then the war in Ukraine would already be over. We would already be looking at a war in a different region now. So it's clear that a lot of the stuff that we've been fed, it's just not true. But as you guys know, Biden recently has given Ukraine these long-range missiles. He's given them the okay to use the long-range missiles against Russia. And he's done this on purpose because he has about 2 months left in office. And their plan is to drag the U.S. into World War III before Trump takes office. That's the plan. It's clear as day. They want to throw fuel on all of the flames that are burning throughout the world, right? There's a lot of little conflicts. There's little problems going on throughout the world. And instead of doing something to help, instead of doing nothing, Biden, the Biden administration, the people who are pulling the strings behind the scenes, they are purposely ensuring that things get as bad as possible before Trump takes over. And that's what we're witnessing in Ukraine. There's no reason why you had to use long-range missiles now. There's no reason why, unless you wanted to sabotage the next administration. And these people don't care if the U.S. gets thrown into nuclear war over it, as long as they can make Trump look bad. That's the reality of the situation. It's a sad reality, but it's the truth nonetheless. But anyway, Putin has made himself very clear about how Russia will respond to Ukraine using these long-range missiles. And instead of listening to other people talk, instead of listening to me talk, let's listen to Putin out of his own mouth. He's going to talk for a few minutes here. I think it's important to listen because he lays out everything that he intends on doing if the U.S. and NATO keeps poking, if the U.S. and NATO doesn't back down. He's letting it be known loud and clear what the plan is. So let's go ahead and roll this clip. Let's understand what Russia plans on doing here, and then I'll be right back with more.
Around the world, as well as those who still nurture illusions that a strategic defeat can be inflicted against Russia, about events that are happening in the Special Military Operations Zone. I'm talking about what happened in the wake of long-range Western weapons being used in the Special Military Operations Zone. As a result of the escalation, in the United States and their NATO allies said that they give their permission to use long-range weapons against targets inside Russia. Experts know fully well, and the Russian side has underscored this time and again, that using such weapons without the direct involvement of military operators from manufacturing countries is impossible. On November the 19th, 6 ATACMS missiles manufactured in the US were used, and on the 21st, a combined attack using Storm Shadow manufactured in the UK and missiles manufactured in the US were used to attack missile targets in the Bryansk and Kursk regions of the Russian Federation. Starting from that point, as we have underscored many times, the regional conflict in Ukraine, provoked by the West, acquired a global character. Our anti-missile systems countered those attacks. As a result, the targets and objectives set by the enemy were not achieved. The fire and the ammunition storage in the Bryansk region, as a result of fragments of ATACMS missiles falling, has been contained. No victims. In the Kursk region, one of the command and control centers of our Sever group was attacked. As a result of the attack and the countermeasures, there have been people wounded and killed, and those who were involved in servicing these facilities, but those who were members of the command have not been hit by the attack and are now continuing their operation to remove the enemy from the Kursk region. I repeat, the use of such weapons cannot change the course of the special military operation. Our military is successfully advancing along the entire line of contact, and all the objectives that we set before ourselves will be met. As a response to the use of US and UK manufactured weapons, the Russian forces have carried out a combined strike on one of the military-industrial facilities in Ukraine. And this included the test of a novel intermediate-range Russian missile system. A ballistic missile with a non-nuclear hypersonic payload was used. The test was carried out successfully. The objectives of the launch have been met. One of the largest and well-known industrial centers that is known since the Soviet times in the Dnieper region, which is known and to be involved in enemy production, was hit. And further plans are being made in Europe and the Asia-Pacific to deploy weapons and missiles. And we believe it is a mistake on the part of the United States to destroy the system that was established by the Missile Treaty in 2019. We see that the United States and their allies are now considering and has successfully tested their capabilities to deploy advanced missile systems in different parts of the world. And their exercises routinely include the use of such weapons. Russia has unilaterally refused to deploy intermediate and small-range missiles until we see similar weapons deployed by the United States in a region of the world. The use of the novel system, which was essentially an operational test, was carried out in response to the decisions made by the United States and their allies. And the further actions will be considered and decided based on what we see from them. The further course of action will be determined based on the threats to the security of the Russian Federation. We believe that we have the right to use our weapons against military facilities of countries who allow their weapons to be used against ours. And in case of an escalation, we will act as decisively in a mirror fashion. The ruling elites of the countries are nurturing plans to use their military contingents against Russia should be warned. When choosing measures to be used in response, such as the use of systems that was tested recently in Ukraine, will certainly include warnings to civilians to clear the zones that will be targeted, and we will certainly do this in a transparent fashion. And we do not have any fears that it will reduce the effectiveness of those systems, because there is no way to counteract a missile that flies at 10 Mach, which is 2.5 to 3 kilometers per second. Existing anti-missile systems and the anti-missile systems deployed by the United States and Europe cannot intercept such missiles. It is impossible. So, once again, it is not Russia, but the United States who have destroyed the system of international security. And they are trying to preserve their hegemony and stoking a global conflict. We have always preferred, and we still prefer, to resolve our disagreements using peaceful means, but we are prepared for any scenario. And if anyone has any doubts, they shouldn't. There will always be a response.
So basically what Putin just laid out here is this. If America and NATO keeps giving Ukraine these long-range missiles and keeps giving them the go-ahead to use these missiles, Russia is going to respond every single time. And he says that eventually they're going to respond in a different manner, meaning that they're going to strike weapons facilities in other countries. He's saying, oh, it's not just going to be a response against Ukraine. We will strike out at other facilities in other countries that are developing and producing these weapons that are being provided to Ukraine. So he's basically saying, hey, we're willing to strike another country if you guys don't chill out. And that new weapon, that new missile that they tested, let me just tell you this. It sent a message loud and clear. And that message is that most of NATO's missile defense systems, they're not going to be able to stop these new Russian missiles that they've tested. Okay? A lot of these missile defense systems that NATO has set up throughout Europe, they're not going to be able to stop a Russian strike if Russia doesn't want them to. That's what that message was. That little video clip that you've seen, yeah, that's letting the world know. It's putting NATO and the rest of the world on notice that, hey, we could use stuff like this if you don't leave us alone. But unfortunately, we still have a while left. We still got a month or so left of Biden in office, and there's no telling what they'll do to further spiral us into this conflict. I am hoping that, I'm hoping that Russia shows some restraint, and I'm hoping that they try to ride out this last month or so, and maybe we can get some peace talks under Trump, because that's the best alternative. I don't care if you like Trump, you hate Trump, none of that matters. None of us will like World War III. None of us will. I assure you that. So we need peace, and we need it bad, because this is the worst things have gotten in the world since World War II. No questions asked. But for now, you let me know what you think down below. While you're down there, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you all very soon in the next one.